Greetings from the National Opera Center. I'm Marc Scorca, Opera America President, and hope you had a good summer filled with enjoyable performances. It's exciting to make this report from the field to you, our members. I want to take this opportunity to share what's been happening in the field recently, what we talked about at our most recent annual conference, and a highlight of the year ahead. I attended the premiere of Blue by Janine Tesori and Tazewell Thompson at the Glimmerglass Festival, and Terence Blanchard's new opera, Fire Shut Up in My Bones, with a beautiful libretto by Kazi Lemons at Opera Theatre of St. Louis. Both projects, I'm happy to say, were supported by grants from Opera America. These repertoire development grants and opera grants to female composers are part of our $15 million investment since 1985 in the development of the American opera repertoire. More works are being created than ever that tell different stories about the varied American experience. They tap into deep, universal emotions about family and identity. Encouraging the creation and production of American opera has been a pillar of our work since our founding 50 years ago. But more on those 50 years in a few minutes. It's with sadness that we noted the passing of the great author Toni Morrison, librettist for the opera Margaret Garner, with music by Richard Danielpour. One of the highlights of my career was an invitation from Cincinnati Opera to interview Ms. Morrison on stage at Music Hall. It was one of the most challenging interviews I've ever conducted because her answers were so brilliant and succinct. She responded to all my prepared questions in about 15 minutes of our 45-minute interview, but we improvised from there and had a good time. I'm delighted so many of you were able to join us at our annual conference in San Francisco. We had record-breaking attendance with more than 100 opera companies represented and over 100 opera company trustees in attendance. Thanks to various grant programs, more than 100 composers, librettists, directors, and designers were there as well. They helped us consider the future of the art form from the perspective of the people who will create and interpret it in the years ahead. Over 30 alumni of our Leadership Intensive program were in attendance too. Many of them have progressed to senior positions across the field recently at the Academy of Vocal Arts, Chicago Opera Theatre, Long Beach Opera, Pittsburgh Festival Opera, Wolf Trap Opera, and elsewhere. Between our Leadership Intensive and Mentorship Program for female administrators, we're fulfilling one of the primary objectives of any association, preparing the next generation to guide our art form and our companies into the future. The conference was organized around three main topics: examining traditions, exploring business innovation, and deepening civic practice. I want to take a few minutes to explain what these titles meant to us going into the meeting and what we learned from the discussions. The first, examining traditions, invited the audience to think about how to allocate resources between tradition and innovation. Company leaders have a responsibility to introduce new audiences to the inherited repertoire. At the same time, they have to present new productions and new works that stretch the imaginations of their audiences. We acknowledged that some of our inherited practices extend the real and perceived barriers to expanding our audiences. Our business model, for example, depends on generous individual contributions. But many of our donor strategies inadvertently promote the stereotype of opera as elitist. Even the close relationships among long-standing board members can make it difficult for newcomers to feel welcome among us, unless we're thoughtful about making people feel they belong around our table. What traditions represent indispensable core opera values? Which ones should be adjusted or should we give up to make our companies more accessible? Our second main topic focused on exploring business innovation. While there's a great deal of artistic innovation energizing our field today, on the business side, we still live with the same departmental silos and board committees. How can we do better to adjust our operational strategies to respond to changing audience attitudes, funder preferences, and civic priorities? No other industry thrives by just doing the same thing year after year. We heard from experts who encouraged our members to experiment with incremental changes, learn from them, adjust, and move forward. Innovation doesn't have to be tremendously expensive, but it starts with thinking that is more open to change than protective of business as usual. Our last major topic, Deepening Civic Practice, focused on the public value of opera and opera companies. Many of our member companies have found ways to demonstrate that we, inside the opera world, care as much about the world around us as we do about opera. We heard from community leaders who encouraged us to use the unique attributes of opera to make our communities stronger. We can convene city leaders, advocate on behalf of the entire arts community, provide space and other resources for smaller arts organizations, and inspire personal creativity and self-expression. To get started, though, we have to learn how to initiate new friendships, build trust over time, and establish mutually beneficial partnerships. Results are measured relationship by relationship rather than subscription by subscription. We learned that sensitive civic practice can contribute to a strong bottom line. If you'd like to hear from the real experts on these topics, you can watch each of our general sessions on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/OperaAmerica. We concluded the conference by looking forward. 2020 is Opera America's 50th anniversary, and we're taking the occasion to launch a 50-year celebration of opera's progress in America. We'll honor our founders and take stock of where we've arrived 50 years after our first conference in Seattle in 1970. We'll also use 2020 vision to look forward to the next half century and imagine what's ahead in terms of repertoire, technology, business structures, and more. We'll celebrate the emergence of an American opera repertoire and the development of a national training infrastructure for artists at universities, conservatories, and apprentice programs. We'll recognize the growing investment in work by female composers and artists of color and reaffirm our commitment to civic practice. We hope you'll join us in this celebration. Mark your calendar for a special announcement on Friday, October 18 at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll launch the festivities and share how you can be involved. You can join us in person at the Opera Center in New York or tune in live at operaamerica.org/October 18. I also hope you'll mark your calendar for our 50th annual conference on May 13 to 16, when we'll be back in Seattle where it all began. We hope to see you there. Opera America doesn't offer simple solutions to complex questions. We engage in a steady course of listening, learning, and experimentation. We know from experience that a strong opera company must be inspired by great artistry and established on a foundation of effective governance and board member engagement. For all the opera company trustees watching, consider joining us for our 2020 National Trustee Forum, taking place in March in Washington, D.C. We're also happy to provide customized research and on-site board workshops. You can find more information about this at operaamerica.org/trustees. What would you like to hear more about? Please let me know your questions and suggestions. You can email me at marc@operaamerica.org. I look forward to hearing from you. And remember, that's Marc with a C, M-A-R-C @operaamerica.org. All our work on behalf of Opera in America is made possible by member support and generous contributions. We're tremendously grateful to all the artists and staff who bring opera to life on stages across the continent. We appreciate the indispensable support of trustees and volunteers who contribute their time and money. Thank you for your involvement in Opera America and for all your effort on behalf of opera in your community.